Hey, welcome to Maxwell Leadership Podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to you, to leaders, to women and men that will multiply value to others. Today, you have joined us. If this is your first week, you are in for a brilliant surprise because you're in week 2 of a 4-part series where John Maxwell is talking about the book, High Road Leadership, bringing people together in a world that divides. Now, if you're watching us by YouTube, and if you're not, John dressed up and looks wonderful for you. Join us on YouTube. We want to see you. We want to get to know you in that community. But if you're watching by YouTube, I'm holding up what I think, John, is a brilliant cover. I'm really proud of this cover. I'm very thankful for it. It really communicates the message of the book. I'm holding it up because, John, on your 89th book, you've got a book that, in my opinion, goes back to the law of timing like 21 Laws. The book 21 Laws really redefined leadership from the idea of management to the idea of leadership. I think what you've done with High Road Leadership is you have brought a message for such a time as this. And last week, for those of you that have not heard it yet, John just kind of laid a foundation of what his life of leadership has meant to him, how it has built him to this moment, and how, to be honest with you, John, it's given you moral authority to talk about a subject that most leaders can't talk about right now because they're too busy dividing people, companies, teams, the nation, than they are bringing it together. And so I'm thankful. Thank you for not stopping at 88 and being satisfied with 88 books. Thank you for bringing number 89 to the table. By the way, stay tuned. I'm going to tell you how to get the book. You're going to want to be a part of what we have for you at our website. John, so glad you're here today.
Glad to be here. Delighted. When Mark said 89 books, I really didn't know. I knew it was around 90 somewhere, but I really didn't know. But for you that are aspiring authors or aspiring anything that you're starting at the beginning, when I wrote my first book, I thought it would be my last book. And I had no like big plans or high goals at all. I wanted to write a book, and I wrote a book, and it was so hard for me to write that book. It took me such a long time. That was when I was nice. Oh, thank God that is over. Wow. Okay, I wrote a book. Okay, put that behind me. Little did I know that I was going to write a whole bunch more books. And what I'm saying to you is this has nothing to do with high road leadership, but it has everything to do with you're developing yourself in a successful way. Is that when you begin something that you're passionate about, you learn, and the more you learn, the more you want to share, and the more you want to share, the more you do. And so when I wrote the first book, I thought, okay, that is like the book. And then I realized how silly is this? That isn't the book at all. It's just a book. But there's a better book in me, and there's more that I want to tell. And I'm learning right now that I didn't get in the first book, so I got to write a second book. And I've literally written all my books out of my personal growth and development. It's kind of like, okay, that was good, but I just learned this and I got to write another book. And I just want you to know that the journey becomes a great journey, not because you say, I'm going to take this long journey. It becomes a great journey because you enjoy it in the moment. And one day, after you've had dozens and dozens of moments, you're a long way out there. I was not in a countdown. I didn't say, okay, maybe I could get 10, maybe I could get 20, but I just wrote a book and it helped me. And it helped people. And then I thought, well, but there's something else I want to say because I kept learning. So I wrote another book. So it's not like I set a goal. I didn't set a goal for, how many books I've written. I just loved the journey of growing and sharing. And I want that for you. I want whatever you're doing, whatever you do, you'll probably never write a book. Doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, I want you to enjoy what you're doing so much that it will create within you a desire to do more. And I think that's been the key. I've never got ahead of the moment. I've never gone out 5 years and said, okay, this is where I'll be and this is what I want to have. I've never been there. I kind of just said, this is where I am and this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm helping people today. And there's something really beautiful about today. There's something very fulfilling and satisfying about being in the moment and making the most of that moment because you're there. So anyway, that's a whole different subject. We'll do that on another podcast, but But that's how I got to 89 books or how many ever I have. And again, I still don't have like somebody the other day said, do you have a goal now for 100? I said, no. I said, honestly, I started out just having a goal for one and wasn't sure I was going to make that one. So, but the other thing is, as you move forward in this journey, you grow and you develop and your capacity becomes so much bigger. When I look at the first book I wrote took me a year. Honestly, if I had to write a book like that, 3 days, I'd be done with it. 3 days. You say, how did you go from, it took a year to 3 days? I grew my capacity. My capacity is so much bigger today than it was back then. It's going to be the same with you. As you live in the moment and grow every day, your capacity enlarges, which means you get more wisdom. You just understand. You can do it better. You can do it more quickly.
Hey, podcast listeners. Many of you listening right now would probably love the autonomy that comes with owning your own business or becoming a coach that helps other businesses succeed. Well, we have a phenomenal strategy where you are 100% in control of your own business, earning income on your own terms, and have access to the people, tools, and resources you need to build a thriving leadership development business. When you become a Maxwell Leadership Certified Team member, you join a global community of entrepreneurs led by our expert team of mentors and faculty, including John C. Maxwell. You'll also get one of the top leadership certifications in the world next to your name, giving you the boost you need to get started. Visit us online at maxwellleadership.com/join the team to find out more.
Well, and John, I can speak on behalf of 36 million pair of hands that have held one of your books. Just let that stagger you for a minute. I can speak on behalf of 36 million pair of hands that have held your books, and I can tell you thank you. Thanks for answering that call, responding to that opportunity, and staying with it 89 times because we're better for it. Hey, let's take a moment, though, and let's talk about this book, High Road Leadership.
Sure.
Why the book? Why now? Why did you write High Road Leadership?
Well, you said in the last podcast that I'm leadership sad, and I am. And I'm leadership sad because I don't think leaders are leading well. I think we don't have servant leaders. You talked a moment about public servants. I'm longing to see some I'd like to see some public servants in government and in every facet of life. Public servant really sounds good to me. Because I don't see that now. I see selfish public servants. Just drop off the servant and put selfish there because that's where we are. And we've lost our way in America. Let me give you an acid test to see if you think we've lost our way. Because I've been trying this out, and I'm finding that I'm getting the same response. And here's where it is. I ask people all the time now, Mark, is leadership doing well today? Are leaders doing good today? And very seldom do I hear somebody say, oh man, leadership's really good right now. About everybody says, no, it really isn't good. See, what I'm writing, High Road Leadership, is what people are feeling. And one of the things great communicators do is they express in words what people feel. And I've always tried to do that. And High Road Leadership, when you talked about timing, I have never written a book that the timing is more important than right now, because here we are, 2024. We're about to get into a political mess, a free-for-all that's going to be disgusting to the majority of the people. And the reason it's going to be disgusting is because we have people on both parties that put the party before the people. One of the catalysts for me to write High Road Leadership was 4 years ago when Donald Trump and Biden were in their presidential debate. This is when they're getting ready to run before the next elections. And I sat with about 5 of my friends, and I watched, President Trump and Joe Biden. I watched them for 90 minutes act like junior hires, criticize each other, kicking sand on each other. And in fact, they never looked at the camera and talked to me. I felt totally left out. I thought, now, I wonder who their president's going to be. He certainly isn't talking to me, because they were criticizing each other, couldn't wait to do another low blow, low road stuff on each other. And there'd be times I just kind of raised my hand and said, would you just look in the camera and say maybe the people in America really matter? Because they put the party before the people. And that's both sides. So don't get upset with me. I'm telling you, we have a political mess because we have leaders that have lost their way. And the reason they've lost their way is they've lost their values. I wrote High Road Leadership because it's a book on values that we need to have as a person so that we can be a good person. I mean, forget leadership. Shouldn't you be kind to people? Shouldn't we want to add value to people? Shouldn't we want to bring them together instead of separate them? Hey, shouldn't we be like Mark said a little bit ago? Everyone deserves to be led well. People deserve good leadership. And I'm telling you right now, we're not having good leadership. And it bothers me greatly. And we're not going to have good leadership until we get back to values. Because when I say everything rises and falls on leadership, Mark, there are two things that cause leadership to succeed and rise. One is good leadership skills, and two is good values. And if you have good leadership skills, but you don't have good values, you'll manipulate the people. You'll move them for your personal advantage, which is always wrong. Doesn't that remind us of the politicians today? I just kind of sometimes feel alone out here. I feel that, like, do I have anybody leading in the country that really cares for me and cares for and values everyone? See, the very fact that we divide the people tells me two people are going to run for president, and both of them are going to be divisive. And both of them are going to criticize the other crowd to get support for their work. Now, let me explain something to you. I thought I was so wrong. I thought we were going to elect the president of the United States, not a president of the blue states or not a president of the red states. I didn't know we had a succession. I didn't know that we split. I thought we were still the United States of America. We're not the United States of America. How can you be the United States of America in reality when you got people running for president? They're dividing America. And why are they dividing America? So they can get elected. It's all selfish. The reason they divide America is not for the best of the people. It's for the possibility of increasing the odds for them to become elected. And so this book, oh my gosh, I mean, it's not an accident, Mark, that we released it right now. This is not an accident. We wanted to release it right in the middle of a political campaign so people could look at this. You know, we're hearing right now that the most important decision in 2024 is who you vote for. I'm saying that's not the most important decision you're going to make in 2024. The most important decision you're going to make in 2024 is how well you behave. Are we going to be kind and civil? And are we going to behave well? Are we going to act like a bunch of junior hires? And again, I mean, I see families that are splitting over these issues. I see good. And by the way, there's a huge problem here. Just because, Mark, you and I have a disagreement on something, that doesn't make me right or you're wrong. My wife and I have been married for 55 years, and we have things we don't agree on. But we've had a 55-year marriage. I mean, come on. We don't have to all agree on everything. But let me tell you something. When I take those disagreements and I make them divisive, and I put a wedge in there, and I'm right and you're wrong, now all of a sudden the marriage goes to pot, the country goes to pot, your company goes to pot, your team goes to pot. And somebody has to speak up. Somebody has to write a book. Somebody has to say, let me show you what a high road leader looks like, so that you can begin to visually become that kind of person. When I spoke at the United Nations, you know this, Mark, I spoke because talk about divisive people. I spoke to all the ambassadors of every country in the world, and some come from kingdoms, some come from socialism, some come from dictatorship, some come from democracy. I mean, you talk about diversity of government and leadership. And yet I said there are three questions that every follower asks of their leader, regardless of what kind of government you have. And the three questions are very simple. Do you care for me? Can you help me? And can I trust you? Now just use those questions in that test for where we are in leadership in America. Do you care for me? I don't think so. In fact, I think you only care for the people that are on your side. And if they're not on their side, I think you kind of blast them. And can you help me? Well, can you really help somebody that you don't like? And can I trust you? Can I trust you? No, I can't trust you. I mean, we've lost the foundation of leadership, which is trust. And why I can't trust you is very simple, because you're in the game for yourself. You're not in the game to help us. You're in the game for yourself. So, okay, I did a little preaching there. Sorry, Mark. Excuse me.
Well,
all right. Down, boy. Just settle down.
Hey, the world needs this message, John. Don't be sad. You know, you and I, we're in a dozen or more different countries every single year. In fact, in the next few days, we'll be in 2 other countries other than the United States. And let me tell you this, over thousands, tens of thousands of listeners from other countries. Let me tell you this, your leaders need to hear this message too. Your people, the people that you're leading, it is a global crisis. It is a U.S. crisis. Please pray for us. Those of you not in America, we need some prayer this year. But let me tell you something. It's a global issue.
Yes,
and that's why we wrote this book. In fact, for all of you, you can go to highroadleadershipbook.com right now. We've got more of John coming, but you can go to highroadleadershipbook.com. You can order the book. You can order the audio book, my international friends. We've got a talk there that John did recently about high road leadership that is yours free. You can download the first chapter of a digital copy of the first chapter. We've got a lot of resources for you at highroadleadershipbook.com. John, speaking of just the need for this book, what are the biggest leadership problems that we're facing today?
Well, we have some big ones. I mentioned one just a moment ago, lack of good values. Somebody asked me the other day, I said, what's a good value? I said, I can tell you that very simply. A good value is the fact that you value all people, and what you do is for the benefit of the people. That's a good value. It's the golden rule. Treat others like you'd like to be treated yourself. Is this complicated? Is this difficult? Not at all. Another big problem is that leaders divide instead of unite. We've talked about that briefly, so I don't need to get into that much. But you know, one of the things we teach in leadership, Mark, you know, that really works well is the power of shared thinking. And shared thinking basically says that if you bring people together and you're open to different thoughts and ideas, and you have some kind of a project you're working on, the more you work together, the better idea you get. Here's what I know. If we have 4 or 5 of us in a room and we say, let's work on this challenge or this problem we have. If you got 4 or 5 people in the room, you're going to get different perspectives. I have never, ever taken a vision or an idea to our team and given it to them and walked out with the same vision or idea. They made it better. Why'd they make it better? Because they have different experiences, different perspectives, different thoughts. And so shared thinking makes everything better. And America was built on democracy. It was built on coming together and sharing your thoughts, sharing your ideas so that we can have the best idea. We don't come together. We don't share. And by the way, you say, well, we're in terrible straits. Can I tell you something? When America was in a civil war, we were lucky. We had a president named Abraham Lincoln. And what did he do with his cabinet? Not what they do today with their cabinet, where you just get everybody on your team that think like you and talk like you and have the same viewpoints of you. No. Abraham Lincoln brought his political adversaries on that cabinet. I mean, people that ran against him for president, one called him an ape. I'm talking about adversaries. And they said, why are you bringing these adversaries in your cabinet room, being part of the cabinet? He said, because the Civil War, the country is in such need. I can't just depend upon my way of thinking. I've got to get the best people with the best ideas, regardless of what party they're in, so that we can come up with the very best for America. Now, there was a president that put America first. He said, the needs of this country require the best minds. By the way, Winston Churchill did the same thing in his bunker in London during World War II. He brought Clement Attlee in the bunker with him, who was a political adversary. In fact, Clement Attlee, when the war was over, defeated him as prime minister. But Winston Churchill said, no, the hour is so crucial. I have to bring people that are different than me, that think different than me. I have to hear them. Because what happens is this, very simply. You bring good people together for the right reasons, and they'll come up with a better idea than what you or I will ever by ourselves. Shared thinking is huge. So if I'm a leader that divides instead of bringing people together, I don't get that shared thinking. And then we're just selfish. My friend Sam Tran one day was talking to me. He said, I got a one-word definition of leadership, and he knows how much I love leadership. He's a good leader too. And I said, Sam, what is it? And he looked at me, smiled, and he said, my one-word definition of leadership is others.
Wow.
I said, I got it. I got it. Isn't that beautiful? Others. Look at our leaders today. Are they thinking of others? And by the way, another problem we have is our leaders aren't accountable for their actions. I mean, when's the last time somebody was accountable for the actions? They're always excusing, they're lying, they're not telling the truth, they're pushing someone else out there and pointing to other people, and there's no accountability. I mean, when's the last time we saw a national leader look at the people and say, you know what? I made a bad decision there. I need to change that. Gosh, I thought it was a good one. I made it in good faith, but it's not really what we need to do. We need to back up. When's the last time we've heard somebody own their mistakes? High road leaders, they're accountable for their actions. And so those are some of the problems. That's why I wrote the book. Every page in the High Road Leadership book, here's what the reader's going to say. I've been feeling this for a long time. John's expressing in words what I have been feeling and what I've been thinking. Because I promise you, our country, there's a lot of unrest. In fact, I read the other day that 80% of the people that are citizens of America don't want either person that's going to probably run for president to be president. 80% of America, we don't even want them. And yet we're going to get them. Why are we getting them? Because the party's before the people. No longer do we have that voice. And so I'm just saying to us all, if we can just see what a high road leader looks like and begin to practice these behaviors, it's going to change your family. It's going to change your community. Hopefully, after a while, it'll change our country.
Yeah, John, I'm going to ask you another question about high road leader. But as you were talking, of course, today we're talking a lot about United States. We're talking a lot about government here in the United States because of the political climate. But I've watched you in our business environment, because we have a lot of business leaders, a lot of entrepreneurs. I've watched you employ shared thinking and produce a $1.5 million idea that was already a great idea, but you wanted, needed, and wanted to invite the team to be a part of it. And I've just watched you walk in very different than most leaders, to be honest with you, very different than me in my immaturity at times, and walk in and will an idea into fruition. Yet shared thinking allows corporate buy-in so that when that ideator walks out of the room, it is collectively owned and collectively implemented. And by the way, collectively celebrated. And so, John, I've just watched you do this. You are a high road leader, and I know you're not going to give me a bonus for saying that, but I promise you, you are a high road leader, and I watch you do that from stages. I watch you do that in boardrooms, because truly, it's true. High road leadership has got to be an inside job so that the people around you will begin to benefit from your high road leadership activity.
That's true, Mark. And bringing people together will take a good idea and make a great idea.
Yeah,
we need our congressmen, our senators to quit putting walls across the aisle. They need to be with each other. I mean, when you look back at Ronald Reagan, every Friday he had a lunch with Tip O'Neill, who was a political, quote, adversary. He was on the other side politically. Why did they get together every Friday? To discuss what was best for the country. Bill Clinton did the same thing when he was president. He crossed the aisle, and what we need leaders to understand. When you talked about in the business community, that $1.5 million idea didn't start off as a $1.5 million idea. It was just a good idea. And then maybe it was a $500,000 idea. But when we got together and everybody put their mind to it and began to put their wisdom to it, all of a sudden the value of that idea just kept increasing. And yes, everybody owns it because everybody had a piece of it. And that's what you want. It's not me. We got to go from me to we. We got way too much me in our country. We got to go from me to we, because that's where the ownership happens always.
Yeah. Hey, so John, this book, High Road Leadership, where do people begin to be a high road leader?
By valuing all people. When people ask me that question, I said, you just have to value people. But not just value people that you like, not just value people that are on your side, but you value all people. And once we do that, then, because what happens is if I value you, I'll look for ways to add value to you. But if I devalue you, which is what happens today, I'll not only not look for ways to add value to people, I'll look ways to hurt you. I'll look ways to make you look bad. I will try to decrease you, not increase you. You were with me in New Mexico about a year and a half ago, Mark, when we were talking to some of the top educators in America from every state of America, public school educators. It was a great day. And we were talking about values. We did a values roundtable with them, and we did Q&A, and I did a teaching on values. And one of the leaders in education, she raised her hand and she said, "John, you talk about valuing me. How can you say you value me? You don't even know who I am." I said, "Well, I got an answer, but it's a faith answer." And I said, "I wouldn't give you that answer unless you are comfortable with me giving you a faith answer, because I don't in any way want to do something that would not be right for you." She said, No, tell me why. And I said, "Well, I said, the reason I can say I value you without knowing you is I know God, and God values you, and God created you. And because he did, so do I." And that's from a faith perspective. Many people that are on the podcast, many people are people of faith, but many of them are not. But listen to me very carefully. It doesn't matter whether you're from a faith perspective or not. People need to feel valued. Now, let's get away from politics for a moment. Jamie Kern-Lima, one of my wonderful friends, in fact, she just wrote a book, Worthy, that's a fabulous book. If you don't have it, you need to get it. She said something very important in that book. She said, we tell people to believe in yourself. And, I believe I can fly. Okay, here we go. Get that belief. She said, people don't rise to the level of their belief. They rise to the level of their self-worth. It doesn't matter how much I believe. If I don't have good self-worth in me, I'll sabotage everything I try to do. Where do people get self-worth? They get self-worth from having other people walk into their life and value them, and then walk into their life and add value to them. That's why in our John Maxwell coaching company, Mark, what do we say? We are people of value who value people and add value to them. Podcast listener, just write that down.
Yeah. I
am a person of value. If I'm truly a person that I value myself, I value me, because you cannot give what you do not have. If I value me, I'm a person of value who values people. Well, of course I can value you because I value me. If I don't value me, I can't value you. So I value me so I can value you. And what happens is then I add value to them. That's the beginning of a high road leader. When you look at yourself and value who you are as a person, and value other people and respect them and are civil and kind and nice and value them, then all of a sudden you can add value to them. And when we start adding value to each other, we become, you have a great business, you have a great team, you have a great country. That's the way it works.
I was just last week, I was talking with one of our podcast listeners, Ron. Ron's a state representative from the country of Texas. They make me say that, all you Texas residents, the country of Texas, but the state of Texas. And Ron was telling me, John, he's a longtime friend of yours, listener to a podcast, and he said, Mark, I am so ready. He spent much of the last 2 decades he spent in government. He said, I'm so ready to hear John talk about the concept of high road leadership. And so I again direct your attention, those of you that are viewing today, jump into YouTube. We want to see you. Make a comment. We want to hear from you. And I'm holding up this book that I think is well needed for such a time as this. High Road Leadership book. You can go to highroadleadershipbook.com. You'll be able to order the book. You'll be able to download the audio book. There's several other resources there. Hey, we're going to do a book launch party. You'll find out more information about that at highroadleadershipbook.com. I have a challenge for you. You know, last week, those of you that are in week 2 with us, and by the way, there's 2 more weeks coming, so tune in next week. But I challenged you last week, get this message inside of you. Get it inside of your family. Create a family of high road leadership activity. Create disciplines within yourself. Today I have a new challenge for you. Everywhere we go this year, and again, this is globally, everywhere we go, they go, what is going on with American politics? My challenge to you this week is don't just vote, although I hope that you don't. Don't just critique, but why don't you equip your political leader in your community with high road leadership? We spend a lot of time critiquing. We spend a lot of time criticizing. We spend a lot of time armchair quarterbacking. Why don't we do something? And I'm just going to challenge you. We talk about it. Why don't we start doing something about it? And I want political leaders all around the globe, specifically here in the United States, I want them this week to get a high road leadership book in the mail. You can go ahead and pre-order it at highroadleadershipbook.com. We're going to start sending those out in the next few days. You'll be able to get it and then put it in the hand. Wouldn't it be cool if some of the state representatives, some of the state senators would start getting stacks of this book and say, I think I better read this book. I've got 3 of these books this year or this week. My challenge to you is let's not just talk about politics. Let's not just critique politics. Let's try to equip them with a different way of thinking. John, you've made that possible with your 89th book. Before we send everybody off today, I wanted to just give you a chance to comment or get us ready for next week.
Well, I'm just smiling, Marcus. I loved your idea. Why don't you send your public servant, the person that that's in a public office, the high road leadership book, and wouldn't it be good if they got 3 or 4 of them? All of a sudden, you were giving me kind of a picture. I was thinking of wouldn't it be great if we started a movement we sent these books to our politician friends and we had a high road blizzard. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
It's just all of us, because let me just say this. I think many of the politicians start off very well. But power corrupts and absolute power absolutely corrupts. I think they start off well. But I think they get into a system. They get beat up by the fact you got to be a party person. And I think they kind of have lost their way. I think there are many that if they had that book in their hand, first of all, I think there are many public servants when they get the book in their hand, they're going to say amen, because there are many, many public servants that are high road leaders. They're not all bad. But I think there are some that this would be kind of just a wake-up call, just to kind of, oops, I got to check myself. I'm starting perhaps to slide a little bit. So I loved your idea of getting it for people in leadership positions, not only political leadership. I mean, for the mayor of the town, for the school superintendent, people that are in leadership positions. This is the book that they need to be focusing on, especially right now. So anyway, this was a fun podcast.
It was.
I'm enjoying this. Mark lets me come on every once in a while.
Hey, let's do it again.
Let's do it
next week. Let's do it. Hey, like John said, not just your mayor, not just your representative, but what other servant leaders in your community would love to get a book rather than a complaint, that would love to hear from you because they are serving. And I'm just going to challenge us. Come back next week. I'm going to challenge us. Let's start a high road leadership movement. You know why? Because everyone deserves to be led well.
That's right. They do.